Hey everybody, welcome to another video. Today we're going to be working on this PlayStation 5. This has been sent in by a customer and surprise surprise, it doesn't turn on. It's a PlayStation 5, they never do, because they absolutely suck. But with that being said, my name's Dakota, I'm an electronics technician. I mainly work on games consoles, but I do work on other stuff too. So if that's the sort of stuff you're into, be sure to get subscribed and turn on the bell notifications. That way you don't miss any future videos. If you do want to organise a repair, visit Dakota.repair, that's my online booking site. You can request a quote? Yeah, you can have my quote. I don't know, it's nearly summer, I don't need it. You can request a quote, you can book it in for repair and send it over to me. The PO box is in the on the website as well. And also you can, like I said, get in touch and request a quote if you need to do that as well. Usually for PlayStation 5s, if it's a no power issue, I'll get my words out eventually. I typically charge around about £80. It depends on the issue, but I do like to try and be upfront, and normally it averages around about £80, something like that. But anyway, a big thank you to my Patreon supporters as well. You can support me over there if you want to get early access to the videos and also support the channel. It allows me to keep on doing this sort of stuff. You know, videos do cost money to make. They also take time. So if you do want to support me, there'll be a link to Patreon in the video description as well. So with that being said, let's get into today's repair. This video probably still would have been here without today's sponsor. But hey, it's time to show something, right? So here goes. Here at the Coded Productions, we love nothing more than to take as much money from you, the viewer, as we possibly can. Which is why we're proud to talk to you about consolefix.shop. A great place for you to spend your hard-earned cash. I mean, yeah, fair enough. You get parts and supplies that help you fix things, but you've got to give me some money in return. Nothing in life's free, and if you pay me for it, you might appreciate it more. Or not, hey, I'm not judging. With that being said, we do have some pretty cool stuff on the shelves, including power supplies, HDMI ports, charging chips, MOSFETs, and whatever else you can think of that'll give you the illusion that you're getting a good deal. So head on over to the online store by clicking on the link in the video description, and if there's one thing I can guarantee, is that there will be a way for me to take your money. Console Fix, your friendly money grabbing YouTuber. Okie dokie, so like I said, this is a PS5. Let's see which version it is. It is the old version, and it looks like it has been opened as well. So what is this then? Is it the 1200 or, sorry, is it the 1100 or is it the 1000? Let's have a look. It is the 1100 series, so EDM 020 motherboard. Although, that being said, the 1100 series, when they first came out, did have some EDM 010 boards. But yeah, let's just take a look and see what's actually happening with it. The model number is pretty important, by the way, because you've got several different board variants. So I've got a few boards here which I've got, you know, turned into donor boards. So the board that we've got here in this console is this one, the EDM 020. The 1200 series boards are these ones, so they're the smaller ones, the ones I did just before the slim, and then the EDM 010 is the 1000 series, which is that one, which I've just fixed about 10 minutes ago. Didn't do a video on this, but yeah, there we go. So the only reason I'm doing a video on this, well, I mean, I probably would have done anyway, but the main reason I'm doing a video on this is because the customer wants me to try and point him towards where the fault is. So I told him I'd do a video on it. It does look like we are stone dead, so yeah. Okay, let's get the console apart and we'll see what we can do. Well, a no power issue on the PS5, I never really take the customer's word for it, and this isn't obviously anything against the customer. It's just that for most customers, not all customers, but for most customers, when they say it doesn't turn on, it can mean quite a few different things. So it can mean that the console literally doesn't turn on at all, which is obviously the case here. Or it can mean, for example, that it's got a 2-second blue light of death where it'll turn on and then turn straight back off. Or it could also mean that it just turns on but just doesn't display anything. You know, it can mean a number of things, which is why I always test it first. That, and to cover my own back as well. So, okay, that might be my screwdriver knackered. Or it could just be the fact that that screw is chewed. never mind. So I'll fast forward through this bit anyway. But yeah, while I'm fast forwarding through it, a big thank you to, like I said, my Patreon supporters. If you do want early access to videos, like I said, it does massively support the channel, helps me to keep these videos going, helps me to keep the channel going. So I would really appreciate it if you, well, basically just buy me a cup of coffee, a couple of pounds a month, and you'll get early access to my videos. Anyway, let's speak to future me, shall we? Okay, so there's all the screws removed. The sticky pads here have just been slapped all over the place. Don't know what to expect with this one, if I'm being completely honest. It's definitely been opened. Whether it's actually had any prior repair attempts, I don't know. So I've got a little clause, or say clause, it's more to protect my interests. So if a console has prior repair attempts and I don't know before I give a quote, if I haven't been told before I give a quote, then basically I'm going to charge a bench fee because, well, I usually take that into account when giving a quote, right? However, if it's just been opened up, you know, if someone's just opened it up, had a little nose around and they haven't done anything, then that's absolutely fine. You know, well, I mean, even if it has had a prior repair attempt, you know, all I ask for is honesty, really. This one, I don't know. I haven't checked on the booking form to see if it says that a prior repair has been attempted. But I know that there's no notes on it to say what's been done to it, sort of thing. So even if a prior repair, like let's say for example someone sends it to me and they've replaced, for example, the DA9065, which is one of the power management chips. You know, if they said, for example, on the booking form, oh, I've tried replacing DA9065, still no luck, blah blah blah. I've connected to UART, you know, can't get a UART output or don't get any errors on UART or something like that. Then, you know, I'm fine with that because I know, you know, I need to look in that area to see if there's anything wrong, you know, with what they've done. But I also need to know, or I also know that it's actually been done. Hopefully that makes sense. I don't know if that's the case on this one. I haven't seen the board yet. You know, you're seeing it for the first time as I'm seeing it. So yeah, I'm not sure, but basically that's just my way of kind of protecting myself. But anyway, I've just plugged this back in, and the first thing I always do when I'm working on a PlayStation 5 with no power is I'll check some of the power rails, and that's going to be starting with the main 12-volt power rail because I need to make sure the power supply is working before anything else. Be a bit boring if it is just a power supply, but this is a live video, and yeah, I don't know what to expect until it actually happens. So yeah, there is that. So if I get my multimeter, let's check for 12 volts. So 12 volts going to be on this big pad here. So you see all these little wires. We can just test any one of them wires, or any one of those wires if you want to be grammatically correct. Grammatically correct? Yeah, grammatically correct. It is 1:51 AM, so I can be forgiven for slipping my words. Yeah, we do have 12 volts though. So the next thing I'll do is I'll check some various power rails on this side of the board. I can't really check too many. There's not that many you can check when you don't have standby power. So when it doesn't beep, there's not really that many you can check. So if I zoom in a little bit, oh wow, that's a really bad reflection. Sorry. The lighting will get fixed when I move into the new workshop in a couple of weeks. Alright, but anyway, yeah, so the first one I'll check is 5 volt, which on this 6-pin IC here around the HDMI, we should get 5 volts on the top left pin. We do not. There is no 5 volts at all. Okay, so that tells me straight away that we've got no 5 volt passing through F7002. Or at least I don't think we have. And we haven't. Okay, so F7002, there's no 5 volt coming from the left hand side of the fuse. Do we have it from the right hand side? We don't. In fact, that is dead short. And the reason I know it's dead short is because if we zoom back out, and we take a look at this, we look at the left hand side of the fuse. In fact, both sides of the fuse is dead short. So if we look at the fuse, you see how everything's gone to 0, apart from, you know, the last digit, occasionally the second from last digit. That means that the leads are being nulled, right? And the only reason that the leads would be nulled is if it was basically short. So if I touch my probes together, see it's behaving exactly the same, albeit, you know, it's not completely short. You know, when it's on the board, you know, in this scenario, it's not even going to, you know, like 0.0010 millivolts or whatever you call it. I don't know, but on this one it is. So it's not completely short. You know, not absolutely 100%, but it is short. It shouldn't be nulling the leads like that, and it is. I mean, that could just be that we've got excess current, or that we've got current flowing through and it's trying to power on the circuit, but I'm going to say chances are this area is short. However, I don't think it's going to be the fuse, because it's short on both sides, or it appears to be short on both sides. So let's take the board out. I'm not going to go any further. It's completely pointless going any further until I take the board out, because I know that we don't have a 5-volt rail, and 5 volt is absolutely required. It is the first rail that gets turned on after 12 volt, and basically it's needed for everything else. So if we've got no 5 volt, then we've got nothing. We've got no power, no beep, no lights, nothing. So the next thing I'll do then is I'm going to first of all drain any excess current that might be in the board, and I'm going to do that from a few different spots. The first one is going to be down here. So we've got an inductor here, and we've got a bank of 4 capacitors. I'm going to drain this here because this is a 5 volt rail. So I'm going to just short out both sides of one of these capacitors, and what that'll do is just basically drain any excess current in that circuit. I'm also going to drain it just here on F7003, that's another 5 volt rail. So I'll just touch one of the wires there on that fuse and touch that to ground. There we go, just for a couple of seconds. The same with F7502, I'm going to do that there as well. So right hand side of this cap here, short that to ground, there we go. And then I'm also going to do the same for F7002 itself. I'm going to be careful here because this fuse could end up breaking off. Not the end of the world if it did, but just short that out there as well. And I'll short it out on the right hand side as well. So that will just make sure that there's no excess current in it, which means I'm not going to get any false readings from the multimeter. So let's pop under the microscope then. Okay, and so because we've got no 5 volt, first thing I'm going to do is just check this fuse. So F7002, it's a very common area to fail, and it can fail for a number of reasons. And yep, that is actually good. But the actual circuit is short to ground. So that could be a number of things which is short to ground. It could be one of the capacitors. So it could be this capacitor here. It's very unlikely to be anything on this side because this is the output side. So what we do is we get 5 volts in from here, and that comes through the fuse. It goes into this capacitor here. It goes into the chip, and then it comes out of the chip to 1.8 volt. So it's very unlikely to be the 1.8 volt side. And we can check that by checking the inductor for a short to ground, and that is not short. So that's fine. It could be something around here. So that is short. It could also be the HDMI encoder. Let's just check for a short around here. So I'll just check these caps. No short, okay. What about F7001? Because that does blow sometimes. Nope, that's fine. But it is short to ground. Okay. So F7001 is also short. What about here? That's not short. That is. So that 5-volt line is short. That 5-volt line is short. Fuse is good though. What about the fuse here? I didn't check it. Yeah, the fuse is good. What about this 5-volt line? I'm guessing that they're all short, to be honest. No, that one's not. Okay, interesting. So that is a very common failure point, but apparently not this time. So what I'm going to do then, I'm going to inject a volt into this, and I'm going to just see if I can find a hotspot, basically. So if I inject a volt, basically what I'm doing is I'm forcing power through, and electricity is always going to take the path with the least resistance. Not necessarily the least resistance to ground, it's going to take the path with the least resistance. So if it's short to ground, and in this case if it's dead short to ground like it is, then what that's going to do is the electricity is going to want to flow straight through to ground, and in turn it's going to flow straight through the shorty component, and the shorty component should get hot. So if we inject a volt, we force power through it, the protection circuits are not going to kick in because the power is being forced directly through the line, and basically it's going to, well, should light up like a Christmas tree. So if I just inject a volt there, we get 3 amps of current. We are going to end up with a blown fuse here, by the way, because some of these fuses are not designed for 3 amps of current. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have a little feel around, see if I can find a hotspot. I'm not finding a hotspot yet. We should be finding a hotspot as well with 3 amps. APU is ice cold, which is good, by the way. Alright, let's inject it from the other side then. I might have to use the thermal cam on this. So if I just stick a probe there and inject into that fuse there, we get 3 amps. However, we still don't get any sign of heat. I think I may have to use the thermal cam here. That's strange. 3 amps of current and no heat. So I've got my thermal camera here, and this is the Infrared P2 Pro. It's a really good thermal camera, and I'm going to inject voltage again and see if we can pick anything up. I'll leave a link to this thermal camera in the top pinned comment, by the way. It's cheaper than the standard flares and things like that, and it's way better. I did a review on this and I did a comparison side by side. It's lagging a little bit today, but they don't normally. I think that's my computer. I'm using like 43% CPU right now. Okay, so we're not seeing anything so far. I don't think it's actually showing any signs of heat yet. I may have to increase voltage. Let's flip the board and let's have a look around the other side. Come on, short. Oh. Hello. What are you? Right, so I guess we use the macro lens, which I haven't used for a while, so let me just clean it a little bit. I haven't used that in a long time, the macro lens. So I know that the short is around here, which is the 5-volt circuit for the USB. So if we stick on the magnetic macro lens, now what I can do is inject voltage again, if I don't knock my probes off. But I can inject voltage again. And then I can come up pretty close. There we go, look. And that thing is identifying as a capacitor. Okay. Looks like we've got one shorty capacitor on the 5-volt rail for the USBs. So it looks like this capacitor right here is short. To look at it, it doesn't look that bad. I mean, you've got a little mark in the middle of it, but you wouldn't think that was short just by looking at it, which is why it's handy to have a thermal cam. And I really do, and I'm not just saying this because I get a little bit of a kickback. I do get a kickback if you buy it with my link, which does massively help the channel. I'm not just saying it because of me getting a little bit of a kickback every time someone buys one of them. You know, it's only an affiliate link. It's not like I'm sponsored by them, although I did receive mine for free, just for full disclosure. But I'm not just saying this just because I get a little bit of a kickback, a little bit of money back for everyone that buys one through my link. I'm saying it because it's true. The Infrared P2 Pro is an absolutely fantastic camera. It really is. But anyway, this capacitor here needs replacing. We wouldn't have found that very easily without the thermal cam. I got my hot air at 440 degrees Celsius, by the way, 40% airflow. And there we go. So that capacitor there, we can confirm whether that's short or not, but it's kind of pointless. The thermal cam showed this specific capacitor as being bad, so chances are it's bad. With that cap removed, I'm going to just tin the solder joints. I'll confirm whether the short's gone in a minute. I am going to replace the capacitor. And like I said, chances are we're going to have a blown fuse as well, because the amount of current that got pushed through that 5-volt rail, it's not designed for it. You know, the fuse isn't designed for 5-volt current, 5 amps of current. Or 3 amps of current, rather. It was drawing 3 amps, not 5. But it's not designed for 3 amps of current. So, basically, what we need to do is we need to check all of the fuses in a minute and make sure that they're all good. And if they're not, we need to replace one. It is just a knock-on effect of, you know, the voltage injection trick. And you'll see I've actually stolen a capacitor from here before, from this donor board. So it's not as uncommon as people think for this cap to fail. It usually happens when you get a power surge on the USB port because there's nothing there protecting it, unfortunately. Power surge can happen for a number of reasons. You know, you can get well, first of all, a blurred image. Sorry about that, my bad. So you can get a power surge because the USB port's been plugged in wonky. You can get it because of power surge from the mains. You know, thunder and lightning, all sorts of stuff. There's all sorts of reasons why you can get a power surge on a USB port, or on any capacitor, to be honest. Doesn't necessarily mean that it is down to bad components from the manufacturer, although capacitors do seem to fail an awful lot on the PS5. More specifically on the 5-volt rail, if I'm being completely honest. Alright, so that's that. Let's just clean up. Just a little bit of IPA there. Okay, there we go. So first of all, check the fuse, which is good. And checking it to ground, I can check on this side of the capacitor. So here is a ground point. If I just short out another ground point, there you go. And there you go, no short. So that is one resolved 5-volt short. But I do need to check the rest of these main fuses. So we've got F7502 here. Well, we've got F7003 just there. We've got F7502 just here. That's fine. We have F7001 just up in this top left corner. That's fine. We've got F7501 just here. That's fine. So these are all 5-volt fuses, by the way. F3501's not a 5 volt fuse, but I'll check it anyway because I'm in the area. And the same with F3502 as well, which is this one just here. That one's good. And finally, on the other side of the board, we're going to check F7002. That's good as well. Okay, that's fine. So it looks like all of the current was being sucked down to ground by that shorted cap, which is fine. And I'm going to make a prediction here and say that this console is going to turn on. Ready? She does not turn on. Interesting. Okay. Well, this just got a lot more interesting. I thought, I was pretty confident actually that this would turn on. So, do we get 5 volts now? We do get 5 volts on F7002. Do we get 3.3? Yep. What about 1.8? We do. Are we getting 3.3 volts on the power button? We are. Oh. Huh. That's a bit strange. But it is turning on. Oh. God damn it. Oh no. Either the BIOS is corrupt or something else has just died. Oh man, that sucks. Something else has just happened. Live on video. Don't you just love it when that happens? I'm just going to drain power again. It flatlined. Okay. Or did one of those fuses just give in? Right, 5 volts. 3.3. 5. 3.3. 5. 2. Huh. What's going on with that? Huh. Right. Now that that's on, am I getting 5 volts there? Damn it. Yes, I'll get 5 volts there. What about 2.5? Yeah, 0.8. Yeah, 1.37. Yeah. Okay, I'm getting my power rails. But we have a solid blue light. That's odd. That's very odd. Do we have a corrupted BIOS? It's possible. So there's no pulse, there's no nothing apart from a solid blue light. Alright, so the first thing I'll do then, or the next thing I'll do then, right, is check my resistance on these fuses. So I'll just skim over these. I just want to check the actual resistance on them. So we've got 0 ohms on that, so that's fine. 0 on that. 0 on that. 0. 0. And 0. Okay. So they're all absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with them. The fuses are perfect. So the reason I've checked the resistance is because if it's under 50 ohms, then my meter would beep. And when I'm checking in continuity mode, I'm just listening for a beep. It's probably a habit I should get out of, but I'm just listening for a beep. I'm not looking at the resistance because it's in continuity mode and it doesn't always give you an accurate resistance reading in continuity mode. So if I check the resistance, you know, if it is, you know, like 20 or 30 ohms or something, that could cause an issue. So yeah, let's just have a look. The ports are all fine. Yeah, they're fine. So next thing I'll check then is my boot sequence. So if I apply 12 volts to this, I should expect to see a current draw. And I should expect to see it gradually climb up to 310 milliamps and then drop back down to 8 milliamps. So let's just have a look at that. Okay, we have a delay at 8 milliamps. So it starts at 8 milliamps. And we have a very, very long delay. So 0.008. I think this has taken out the Southbridge, to be honest. Yeah, we still have a solid 8 milliamps. So 8 milliamps of current draw at 12 volts on the 12 volt rail, which I'm injecting just there, by the way. 8 milliamps of current draw is usually indicative of a bad Southbridge. So yeah, it could very well be that, which wouldn't be good. I mean, it would kind of make sense. You know, 5 volt comes from the Southbridge. That's going to suck if that's the case. Because that's going to be more expensive for the customer. I mean, he's already agreed on the price for a Southbridge replacement. Or rather, the price that would cover a Southbridge replacement. But it would suck for the customer if that was the case. Yeah, I'm not seeing any shorts in the usual places. I'm not seeing any shorts in the usual places, but the 8 milliamp current draw is pointing me towards a bad Southbridge. Or, well, not necessarily a bad Southbridge, but something which is connected to the Southbridge. I'm not seeing anything else. Not immediately. It could be that one of these components here have failed. Let's have a look under the scope. No, this is all connected to the same line that was bad. That is ground. It's not showing as bad. Yeah, that area is not showing as bad. It is leading me towards the Southbridge because it's stuck on 0.008 milliamps, or rather 8 milliamps, 0.008 amps. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to reboard the Southbridge, which, well, it's not fun, but it is what it is. So I've got a replacement Southbridge here, which I sell on my online store if you need to buy any. All genuine components. So what I'm going to do is just reball this. So reballing, basically, this is a BGA chip which stands for ball grid array, and that basically means that there's a bunch of solder balls on the bottom of the chip, and those solder balls connect to the board and create the contacts that it needs. And when you remove them from the board, or when you want to put a new one on, they need solder balls on them. So you have to, well, if they don't come pre-balled, which, you know, if you buy them from me, they do come pre-balled because I reball them all. But if they don't come pre-balled, then you have to reball them and replace the solder balls that are on them. Sometimes that can be a little bit tricky when the solder pads are oxidized. So it's a bit like the liquid metal, but you just scrape it with the iron. It's fairly straightforward. I'll come back to that corner one. Okay, so there's a few being a little bit awkward. So what I'll do is just take some solder braid. And guess what? I'll sell this on my online store as well. There we go. Solder braid did the trick. Removed the oxidation. Basically acts as an abrasive. and cleans up the pads at the same time as it wicks away the solder. Not always, like we've got one here being a little bit stubborn. There we go. It does help though. And there we go, that should be nice and clean. So let's just give this a wipe down with IPA. Get rid of that burnt flux. There we go. Okay, I'll just get rid of any excess flux and IPA. Just give it a wipe down with a cloth. Beautiful. Let's add a tad of flux. You really don't need a lot. I'm just going to spread that around and then drop on my stencil. There's something stuck inside my stencil. Of course there is. Why wouldn't there be? Where'd you go? There you are. There we go. Almost. Now there we go. Alright. So this stencil I use is magnetic. You can buy these on AliExpress. So it holds everything in place. And then I'm going to use some 0.5mm solder balls. People ask me why I use solder balls rather than solder paste, and the simple one-word answer is consistency. I know that every single solder ball is going to be exactly the same size, whereas with solder paste, you don't. You could get some balls which are slightly smaller or slightly bigger than others. So I like to use solder balls because it's consistent. You get consistent results every time, especially when you're in my situation where you strip down dyno boards and sell the parts. You know, things like the SSD controller, things like the Southbridge, the RAM. You know, if you're selling those to, for example, a customer, you want to make absolutely sure that the customer is going to have no issues when they receive it, or at least no issues with the solder balls. You know, sometimes, very, very rarely, you'll get like a faulty component slip through the net, but 99% of the time, you know, all of the tests that I do on components mean that it's, you know, a good chip. Right, it's starting to stick to my finger now, so I'll just move the rest of them out of the way. And I'll place the rest manually with my tweezers. But yeah, 99% of the time, it's all consistent, and you know the chip works when the customer receives it, etc. Now sometimes you'll get it where something will happen while it's being reballed. You know, the chip will just die because of heat or something. Now sometimes they do, sometimes you just can't help it. But for the most part, as long as you've got nice even solder balls and you've done all of the necessary tests to confirm that the chip is working when you remove it, the customer don't get an issue. It's very, very, very rare that a customer has to return a chip to me. And having even solder balls is one of those reasons why. Okay, there we go. Nope, there's two more. Whoops. There we go. I'll just collect up these excess balls, because otherwise they'll end up blowing all over the place. I'll just press down on the stencil with my finger and I'll stick to my finger. Press down hard enough, I'll stick to my finger and it'll get rid of them. It stops them from floating around everywhere while I'm reflowing these solder balls down. And there we go. So that is ready now. So if I drop my airflow down to 20%, and I've actually got an excess ball there. There we go, I'll just get rid of that. So drop the airflow down to 20% and just keep the airflow moving. One of those balls have just popped and flew out. Probably because I've got my nozzle on and I don't normally have it on. Okay, there we go. So that's those done. Just drop a ball there in the corner. Damn it, it flew off again. There we go. Perfect. Now I'll add some flux. And I'll reflow them again. There we go. And I'll wait for that to solidify. Start to move the stencil out of the way. And there we go. Right, so I'll give this one final reflow without the stencil in place. And the reason for that is because some of these balls are not going to be fully seated. You might see one or two of them jump slightly. Yeah, like that one there, look. So there was one there that wasn't sat down, probably because of that little bit of crap on the chip that I didn't notice. That's why you should always make sure that the chip is clean. So I'll move that out of the way for a minute, I'll reflow the rest, and then I'll dry the flux up in that area as well. And then that means when I do drop a solder ball down, it's not going to float everywhere because there's not as much flux there. So I'll grab a solder ball, drop it there, and there we go. That's soldered down into place, and we're good to go on that side. So now that's done, I can start to work on this, but I've just noticed something. This has some residue around it. Don't know if you can tell. You can't see it from underneath, but I can see residue around this Southbridge. Now, whether that's just IPA or whether it's flux, I don't know. But yeah, it doesn't look like IPA to me. I could be wrong. Just saying, I could be wrong. It could be IPA, but it looks to me like there's some residue there, and it looks like flux residue to me. I'll find out for sure in a second. That's not IPA. If that was IPA, it would have been gone by now. That is flux. Someone's been working on my board. Someone's reflowed the Southbridge. See? You can't lie to experienced technicians. Not saying the customer has. I'm just saying. We always know. Alright, anyway, doesn't matter. Let's replace it. Alright, so just replace that with leaded solder. And I'm going to take my brand new certified second-hand Southbridge. There we go. I'm going to drop this in place. I don't think anyone's replaced this because it looked like lead-free solder on the chip. It looks to me like someone's reflowed it. Again, I could be completely wrong. I'm not saying for definite, but it looks like flux to me. Or it looked like flux to me. Alright, let's get this flowed down. Okay, so that's flowed down. Again, 440 degrees Celsius, 40% airflow. That's my go-to temperature. And let's let that cool down. And this is probably the last thing I'm going to do on this particular board tonight because it is 3 AM. I'm going to wait for a minute or so just to let it cool down a little bit, just enough to be able to spray isopropyl alcohol on it. Isopropyl alcohol, I'll get my words out. Okie doke. Get rid of any IPA from around the APU. And that is nice and clean. There we go. Good as new. Alright. What is it saying now? Is it going to turn on? Place your bets. Huh. Okay, we do get a beep now, but that's going to overheat because the board's not sitting down flush. Why are you not sitting down flush, Mr. Board? There we go. That was pulsing, that blue light. It was pulsing, which means I think it's now working. There we go, we have a white light. That is booting. So we are now a lot further than we were before. Okay, it's just gone through its boot cycle. The boot cycle is when it doesn't shut down properly, which is understandable considering it crashed as soon as we powered it on. There's the triple beep of success. So we have controller power, controller sync, and that's on the back USBs, which were where the short was, which was where the short was. That is good. So that means there is no lasting damage to the USB circuit. Ugly cam. Ugh. And TV. Don't worry, you won't get ugly cam for much longer because when I build the new workshop, the monitors are all going in front of me. So you'll get a back of my head bald cam instead. There we go. That's displaying. Let's just make sure we get controllers. We do indeed. And that, my friends, is a working console. No, you're not updating my controller. There we go. That is what I'm talking about. So, yeah. It looks like, and I think I'm correct here, it looks like someone has tried to reflow the Southbridge on this. There was residue around the Southbridge, which, to be honest with you, I don't think was IPA. If it was, it would have disappeared and left like a smear mark. When I applied heat to it, it didn't. So I think someone has reflowed the Southbridge. I can't say for absolute sure, but that's what it looks like to me. You know, it is what it is, but the console's working. Happy days. Yes, there's a bunch of cups at the side of me. There's actually more than you'd think. There's... how many? 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 cups. I'm going to go and fill every single one of them, drink 5 cups of coffee, and then go to sleep. Yes, I'm that weird. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Let me know what you think down in the comments down below. Do you think it was worked on by someone else, or do you think that it was just isopropyl alcohol residue? Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you do want to watch these videos early, like I said, you can do so by supporting me on Patreon. You can also buy something from my online store as well. That does also help me out as well because obviously all of the profits come directly to me. And yeah, thank you all. I really do appreciate it. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye for now.